Welcome back everyone to theCUBE here in Los Angeles for the Forward Global Summit 2025. I'm John Furrier, your host of theCUBE. We're here where there's a confluence of thinkers, innovators, entrepreneurs, finance, philanthropists, all coming together to make collective change. New innovations in the systems, but the game is still the same, make the world a better place. Regina Green is here, Managing Director of Investments at Catalyze. She leads the GP Runway Fund, which is an impact fund. Regina, thanks for coming on theCUBE.
Thanks for having me.
We're getting backed up here, but thanks for waiting. Coming on, appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so talk about what you're doing, because you got some innovation happening. Set the table, what's your main role, what's the focus?
Sure. So just maybe to level set, Catalyze is a national platform. We focus on supporting what we call capital entrepreneurs. We describe that as underrepresented and innovative investment managers. So our focus from an impact standpoint is really trying to equip potential investors to build their first few investment funds, whether that's in venture capital, private equity, private credit. We think that the asset management space today doesn't reflect the full range of perspectives in our broader society, and a lot of that is because it's really expensive and difficult to raise a first or second time fund, and so we want to provide support and advice. We started providing that support through a fund fellowship program where we provided operating support to new investment managers to think about how they build their firm, how do they kind of execute best practices in their operations so that the funds that they're raising would be attractive to institutional investors. And we consistently heard from managers, especially those who didn't come from family wealth or have a prior kind of exit of a company they started or something like that, that it was really expensive to start a fund and there wasn't a source of capital to help pay for some of those early fund formation and operational expenses. So we started the GP Runway Fund specifically to address that gap. So managers who are raising their first fund generally are not a credit that a bank would be willing to lend to. So we've now begun raising this Impact First Fund to provide working capital loans as managers are going through that fundraising process for one of their first 3 funds. And it's really to help address legal costs, hiring fund admin, a number of service providers that you need and that you want to have in place to demonstrate the strength of the firm and hopefully attract investors into the fund.
So I love the runway name because it's just, I say I need more runway, more cash.
Exactly.
So the target audience for this product, is it just people who want to start their own fund to deploy capital?
Yes.
Is that like a solo general partner kind of vibe?
So yeah, we often have solo general partners. We sometimes have teams that they've been working together. Maybe they've been investing in some of their own capital, or they work together at another firm, and they have a perspective that they feel like there's an investment opportunity that's not being captured. We're specifically focused on investors who have a different perspective that's not already present in the asset management space. So whether that's something from their demographics or the lived experience that gives them a different lens on identifying
not your classic banker type mentality, MBA that's out there.
Exactly.
The mold that was, and also domain expertise. We're seeing a lot, that's why solo GP, I brought that up because I'm seeing entrepreneurs want to take that first round of funding from someone that they know. Or they respect that has domain expertise. Certainly knowledge in the trenches early.
Yeah.
Do you see the same thing?
I think that's right. I mean, a lot of folks have, prior operating background. Maybe they were a founder, they've built a network of other potential founders that they want to invest in, or they have some unique subject matter expertise beyond just, I happen to also have been a business school grad, but beyond just being an MBA or having worked at an investment bank. But people often have really deep technical expertise, especially in areas like climate or healthcare, where there's no shortage of problems that need to be solved, and having capital directed in the right way.
Okay, so Regina, here's a scenario. So pretend for a minute I want to start the Cube Fund.
Okay.
I see a lot of deal flow. I could have invested in Databricks, Snowflake. I had a lot of chances I could have, but I just didn't think about it. But because I got to raise money.
Yeah.
But hypothetically, if I come to a system like yours, because my alternative is stop what I'm doing, my focus, go out and raise money, which is probably a really lot of hoops to jump through.
Yeah.
What's the alternative? What would I do? Let's just say I want to do a Cube Fund. I would need to have access to prospects to get debt, institutional money, whether it's family money or endowments or whatever, have the big money. People who usually put money in funds. That's what you do, right? So how does that work?
So I think part of it is you'd ideally have a network of whether it's high net worth individuals, family offices, relationships with asset managers who would want to invest as limited partners in your fund. And if you have those relationships, great. Usually that goes really smoothly. A lot of people—
Well, they have to agree.
Yeah, they have to agree. You're negotiating with them. For a lot of people, they don't have that network. They maybe have some friends and family who want to back them, but to raise enough capital at scale to really, properly take advantage of the investment opportunity, they need to build relationships with potential limited partners, especially when it comes to the more institutional investors who are going to write those larger checks. They're going to really do deep diligence. They want to understand, the operations of your firm, like who's the team that you're working with, who's the legal service providers, do they feel good about your cybersecurity, your fund administration, how do we know we're going to get good reporting, and all of that stuff that costs a lot of money. And so
that's a lot of bang.
Ideally,
and time.
a lot of time. Ideally, once you raise money from limited partners, they're paying you a management fee, and that's going to cover those costs. But it's kind of a chicken and the egg, because you want them to be comfortable. Ideally, you'd have some money up front that you could invest in some of these operational expenses.
Yeah, and the big money donors, they have to have trust.
Yes.
And
that
that's
takes
why
a long
it's
time to
always
build.
been kind of an inside game in the past, which you're democratizing, basically.
Yes, so we're really trying to help people, expand those networks, expand, what does an investment manager look like? Where do they come from? What's their background? I think today, when you look at venture capital or other areas within asset management, we do see a lot of concentrations. Like capital goes to, like 80% of capital goes to 3 states across the U.S. So maybe people are coming from different geographical backgrounds or networks, or graduates from a handful of the top universities. So getting people who maybe went to a local college and have a network from the innovation labs that are started in some of these places, access to capital that they can invest.
Well, that's awesome work. Congratulations. You mentioned you got a fiscal sponsor, so you got into the game too. Talk about that really, because I think that's the innovation. I'm seeing this idea of teaming up.
Yeah.
Partnering.
What I was really excited about the Catalyze team and joining them is that they are trying to play this bridge between, we see often a lot of philanthropic funders or kind of mission-aligned investors who have capital that can be deployed in a really specific way. And sometimes the kind of more commercial for-profit side of the industry of finance, they're very siloed spaces. So I think we were able to build a bridge between raising capital as a nonprofit ourselves, bringing in grant capital that helps us fund the fund fellowship program I mentioned, and then our kind of GP Runway fund is an impact first fund, and so we were able to raise capital from foundations and from other investors who intentionally want to be catalytic in this space.
And it moves fast.
Yeah, it moves fast.
All right, so I have to ask you, since we're here at Forward Global, what do you think about the summit so far? What's your takeaways? Describe what they're doing here. I think they're innovating. I mean, I don't have a lot of comparables, but my perception of what the system was before I came here and got involved was not what I see now. So I commented on earlier, but from your perspective, what's the vibe? What's innovative about these guys, and what's the content like?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. So this is my first Forward Global experience, and it's been very different from my expectations. Some of my big takeaways are, one, just like the cross-sectional, a lot of people are focused on a wide variety of issues here. So you've got folks who are focusing on journalism, the future of news, and how do we make sure that people across a range of different communities. I live in New York City, but there's a lot of local communities where the news business has really exited their space, and I think people are being really thoughtful about how can we kind of enliven some of that. News is really critical both to our democracy as well as some of these areas that I'm focused on. And when you're thinking about what the future of a particular sector is going to be and where you should invest, you need information. I've been really inspired by the range of innovations, the willingness to be creative. Several of the sessions have been around this theme of breaking fake rules, and how do we take some of the long-held conventions and think about, is there an opportunity to innovate or change the way we've historically thought about some of these issues or structural kind of limitations on how we can deploy capital.
I love the other angle to add to that. The radical imagination was a word I loved yesterday. I heard that from one of the speakers. And the other one was stories drive movements, which, all innovation and change comes from movements, collective people working together, and trust.
Yeah.
And you're providing that service to entrepreneurs and fund managers, so congratulations. Thanks for coming on theCUBE, appreciate it.
Thank you for having me again.
Okay.
Lovely.
All the actions here, again, innovation in the systems are changing. That's the big takeaway, but the game is still the same. Provide good, create opportunities. Of course, theCUBE is doing its part, sharing that data with you. Stay with us. I'm John Furrier, your host. Thanks for watching.